This is episode 13 of the Wilderness Locals podcast. On this episode, I chat with Lucian of Just Shooting Arrows about the shop, bows, and what it takes to be a good archer. This podcast is brought to you by Kafaru International, the toughest hunting gear on the planet, bar none. Frontiersman gear, high quality, completely custom, handmade knives made in the heart of the Peace Country. And as always, we're brought to you by Just Shooting Arrows, BC's premier archery shop.
I mean, you're kind of preaching to the choir, but if you have people that aren't like hunters that listen to it, it doesn't portray it as a bunch of, guys just walking into the woods and shooting everything that they can. You know what I mean? It shows people spending a hell of a lot of time. And like with you last year, working very hard for, the payback at the end of the day was more the experience than the actual animal that you got.
Yeah, totally. So
yeah,
that's absolutely true. And it is nice to be able to convey that message to the non-hunter. And it's funny, actually, you say that. Like I've had quite a few people reach out that are like, hey, I'm not a hunter, but I really enjoy your podcast. It's cool hearing the perspective that you guys have. And I think it changes people's opinion a little bit.
It does, even talking to you guys. And, I mean, I'm not a hunter, obviously, but even though you're trying to get me out there. But by talking to you guys and knowing and understanding it, when I talk to people that they're like, look, I'm pretty honest about where I stand. And then I'm like, but if you actually spend the time and listen to these guys and talk to these guys, the work they put in, if you had to go on a monetary basis, these guys are way in the red. There's a ton of work that gets put in, and that's where the respect comes in. And I think a lot of it's more about the approach, and sometimes it's working the problem that's more that you guys get off on than the actual final end result. Sometimes I think it's
that's entirely true. I mean, I think I said it in a previous podcast. Like, I don't really measure a hunt by the animal on the ground or meat in the freezer at the end of it. It's sort of the measure of success is kind of like getting out there and accomplishing, like tackling a challenge and learning and spending time. And there's a lot of opportunity for some introspective work when you're out there too. So that's cool. But no, you hit it right on the head, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just know from like other friend of mine that, he's in the process, right, and got his hunting bow, and they have land, but it's been it's the trail cameras out, watching what's on the property, all that kind of stuff seems part of the whole process, and the the enjoyment factor of what you're doing versus the just like pull up my truck, get the big cannon out and a job done kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think there is a serious misconception though about hunting that you can just kind of cruise into the woods anywhere and find something legal to shoot. If that were the case, I think a lot more people would hunt. It's hard, man. Animals don't want to get put in your freezer, and they're pretty good at avoiding it. So,
that's the thing.
So, before we get too far down the rabbit hole here, so you're not a hunter. You're the owner of my archery shop of choice.
Yes, I am. I'm Just Shooting Arrows.
Yeah. And how long have you had the shop for, Lucian? So
I started the shop in North Van about 7 years ago. We started the shop.
Nice.
And I opened up the Surrey location. We did coming on 3 years now. So it came about really quick, the Surrey location. It was more something that happened really fast for the location. And it was a decision made over a weekend, which, at the end of the day, it's turned out pretty good. So, but yeah, the North Van shop started more as an organic process from where I started in archery. It's like one thing led to the next, and then I ended up opening up a shop, which I wasn't planning to do when I shot my first arrow.
Yeah, no kidding. So how long ago did you get into archery then? Because you're in it deep.
Oh yeah, no, I tell people, you're in you're going down the rabbit's hole. I'm beyond the rabbit's hole at this point. So archery started, I'm thinking 10 to 12 years ago, like full on.
Nice.
Being South African.
Nice. And you got into archery to get into target archery, right?
I got into archery because I actually came back from a trip from South Africa where I went and shot guns, and I came back to Canada and was like, well, that would be really fun to do here. Not knowing anyone that did it, I did a little bit of research, thought it was really hard to get into. It seemed like it was super complicated. And then for some reason, I looked up archery, and turned out that there was an archery club 2 blocks from my house. Who knew?
Yeah, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and I went down there, like a lot of people that come into my shop, like very, very green, didn't really know anything, and took a lesson. Really nice people that started the club in North Van. And I think I was hooked right after that, and slowly progressed, got some more lessons. And then, as you said, like we started going down the rabbit's hole. It got into shooting trad like you're doing now. And then after trad, I was guided into Olympic recurve, which, was a fun, and it taught me a lot. And I had a friend of mine that was shooting with me, and he kept bugging me and telling me that I need to go and shoot a 3D because target shooting paper at 70 meters or at 20 meters indoors is not fun. And also was bugging me to shoot compound because I hadn't shot compound yet. So when I decided to go down the compound route, I ended up buying a PSE Stinger. Like I think, what would you say, 60-70% of everyone that starts shooting compound starts with a PSE Stinger?
That's where I started. I started with a PSE Stinger.
And then he said to me, let's go do a 3D. And I don't know if you've ever shot Burnaby Lakes at all.
No, I haven't.
You haven't done the flat field.
No.
So I went there, and the guy that encouraged me and really forced me to come out and do 3D never showed up. So there I was, totally alone, not knowing anyone, and I just went for it. And I got hooked. I shot my first round with the Olympic recurve, and that was my first and only round ever shot with the Olympic recurve.
Yeah, no kidding.
Changing the sights and trying to figure that out was just a disaster. And then I shot my compound, and I was hooked after that. And then it was a lot of learning how to judge distance and working on that process for a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I urge anyone listening to this, and then I always say the same thing to everyone that I talk to getting into archery. Like, there's no better practice than shooting those 3D events. They are so fun.
Yes. Yeah. And they teach you a lot, and you learn a lot going out and doing a 3D. The best advice I would have for 3D is, looking back on it, I was probably a bit hesitant, but find people that are better than you and go shoot with them. Yeah, they will teach you a ton of what you need to know out there.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those 3D guys with unknown yardages are just like mind blowing. They're nailing it within a yard or two every time, right?
Yeah, that's what I worked on for a ton, because when I started shooting, the rangefinders were forbidden, so you couldn't use a rangefinder. And a lot of people told you how to judge distance, but then they really didn't tell you how to judge distance. You know what I mean? So you really had to work on it, get a rangefinder, walk in the woods, pick a tree, try judge your distance. And after that, it was just looking at targets, learning the size of the targets, And I got hooked and slowly progressed through that. Got pretty competitive shooting locally 3D, and then did a couple of bigger tournaments. We did nationals and we did provincials and some target tournaments. Yeah.
And you've shot Vegas too for spot, right?
Yeah. So we did Vegas. Done Vegas a few times. It's
nice.
It's something everyone should go and do. You and your trad bow, if you want to go shoot it, or go shoot it Olympic. Like,
I think
it's an experience.
I think I'd get kicked out of there if I showed up with my stick bow. They'd be like, "Okay, dude, you're gonna hurt somebody with that thing."
No, I don't think so. I think they've got a category for you over there. They've got a category for everyone.
Is it a category that has like a 14-foot wide target? Because then I'm in.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably be fine in that compound hunters class. I'm not sure about the stick bow stuff, but
I've seen some of your photos. I think you'll be okay.
I should do fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. So I mean, the 3D thing, you obviously dove in hard, and then that obviously maybe led to starting the shop.
It did, because when I got into 3D, then I actually ended up I applied and I got a sponsorship from Doinker Stabilizers.
Yeah.
Well, sponsorship. I was a shooter for them. And part of the deal was to go around and promote their stabilizers, which I took pretty serious, and I learned all their stabilizers, and I went around to places and suggested they should look at these products. And I basically got ignored about it. So talking to other archers, they were like, "Hey, how can we get one?" Because they tried mine. And it snowballed from there, where I started basically repping that stuff. And then people asked, "Well, if you can get that, can you get this rest, or can you get this sight?" And that led to me actually dealing with Matthews first.
Nice.
Which I know you're enjoying your Matthews right now.
Yeah, I shoot Matthews well, yeah.
Yeah, and then from that became Matthews. Then went to our first Vegas shoot, spoke to a lot of people there, ended up with Elite as well.
Nice.
And from that, the decision was made to open up a shop, because a lot of people said there was a need for something in town that was a little different, more personal, that people want to do, like just spend time talking about gear and then getting them the right gear. So that's what led to opening up the shop. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that's kind of how you and I met, is just like, I don't know if people listening to this have kind of caught on now, but I'm pretty obsessive about everything I do. And like kind of unwilling to let anybody help me with stuff a lot of times. And
I've noticed that.
I think I walked into your shop off the street, just trying to buy like random components and stuff. And then we got chatting, and I was like, this guy is as anal retentive as I am. Like, what's your deal? Like, something's wrong with him too. And I certainly noticed that in the store when I'm, trying to buy my little finicky things, and you happen to have everything. You're a tweaky guy.
You know what? When I went into compound and you start learning compound, and at the time it was not a lot on, and now YouTube, everyone's a bow tuner on YouTube. So it was not that on YouTube. No, I mean, there wasn't as many like videos telling you how to do things. There was like a few videos telling you how to set up an arrow rest and all that kind of stuff. But it was talking to a guy, and one of the guys that shoot for me, and we spent some time learning bows, and I thought that it was good. You learn a lot and you understand a lot, and you could never really find stuff that you wanted, like spot hog sights or anything more high end. So that was the purpose of the shop. In some respects, was to, if you didn't have a budget, or what kind of budget you had, what would I buy at, say entry level, mid range, and then high end, and that's what I brought in to the store. I mean, there's definitely a place
for the kind of niche retailer like you are compared to some of these big box stores. When guys go to those big box stores and spend way too much money on stuff that's like not even close, and then they end up bringing it to a guy like you, and it's like there's only so much we can do to help you, right? Whereas if you kind of get with somebody that knows what they're doing in the first place, you can get a much better start for the same money.
Yeah, and I think also what's happened with the shop is when you go into, you're going to use big box stores, and that you're talking to guys that maybe they shoot, maybe they don't shoot, and with coming into my shop, when you come in when you come in and talk to me, it's me, right? It's my shop. It's about like it's my reputation. So when we're dealing with customers, it's more about making sure that when you leave the shop, you leave with information and you leave with more knowledge than you came in, particularly on new people, because I think you get super overwhelmed when you walk in there and you're like, I want to get into archery, but where do I start?
Yeah, no kidding. And like the rate that gear comes out at, it's just like, if you were paying attention to it and you didn't know what you were looking at, you would just like fall over with the amount of new bows out every year. Like archery is one of those things, man. It's staggering the frequency that industry operates at.
The turnover on bows is, I mean, it's basically a yearly operation, and they announce their bows. Everyone gets excited about the bows, but you don't really see the bow for a couple of months. Then then the bow's out there, and then they're working on the next one. So yeah, we get actually a very small window where you get all the bows in and people can try them and make their decision. Like this year's a prime example. Like we've just got the new Hoyts in. The Matthews has been around a while. It's more on the bow side that there's a higher turnover in product versus, I mean, like on the component side, there's always new components coming out, but not on that, what you would, like you said, every year, like we're looking at new stuff, but there's a lot of it, and it's overwhelming for people.
Yeah. I had listened for sure. I had listened or read somewhere. I think it was one of the dudes at Hoyt, one of the reps from Hoyt was saying that by the time they've approved the design for this coming year's bow, they're already on the following year's bow. Like we're talking 2 model years ahead.
I could believe it. I mean, I think they get their bows designed and they have to start working on their next cycle. And maybe sometimes I think they design their bows that they're going to go over a few cycles with them. So they just keep developing them. I mean, you can see it on like you can see it on the Matthews. Like you had the Vertex, if I remember correctly. And then you progress through. I think you even had your hands on a VXR for like a day or two.
Yeah, I didn't keep it long. I got it late in the game. No, that is one thing I like about Matthews is they kind of grab some technology and hang on to it for a few years at least, right? I like that. That way I don't have to learn how to tune a different bow every time, right?
No, it's I mean, with their bows, as like they've stayed within the same world for quite a while, and so it gives you a chance to develop something with the bow as well, and for us as people in the shops to understand how to tune them and how to work with them as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's something that's an interesting point that I heard somebody say recently is they were talking about how with flagship bows, it's hard to make a bad decision now. Like everything is so good.
Yeah. And I think this year, and I think we talked about this when you were last at the shop, this is the year where all three of the brands that we carry, the big brands that we carry, like PSE, Hoyt, Matthews, all on binary cams. They're all on the same cam system, basically. And so they're the closest they've ever been in like the level of the bows and the quality of the bows. I don't think you can make a bad decision on any of these bows. You know what I mean? They're all good shooting bows. They've all found like their max horsepower, if you will, right? They're all between that 330 to 350 speed. It's more about the shootability on those bows.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of settled back into a Matthews just because I find that's where I'm comfortable. I did the PSE gauntlet last year, and I never quite got comfortable, and I just find I shoot a little bit of a heavier bow a little better with a little stiffer wall, a little steeper wall there, or back end or whatever. But what are you shooting now? I mean, that's always an interesting question to ask a guy that has access to whatever he wants whenever he wants it.
Yeah. So last year I ended up spinning. Well, last year I got probably too many bows for myself personally. I ended up with, well, it was COVID. We had to do something, right?
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, I ended up with a Hoyt Axios Ultra.
Yeah. And
then a Hoyt Invicta for target shooting. I hadn't had a target bow for a while. And then I've got a Matthews TRX 34 later in the year for more 3D target shooting. And I have a RX5 coming for this year, which I'm going to run like a pin sight on for hopefully some 3Ds at some point this year.
Oh, you're going to go clean up the fixed pin hunter class, are you?
That's the plan for that bow, is to do that, and then we can go out and shoot.
Maybe I will shoot the recurve class then, because that doesn't sound fun.
That'll be fun.
What are you most excited for this year with the new bows that just came out? Is there anything that kind of tickles your fancy?
I'm excited to try the new Hoyts because it's something new. You know, we've gone through the cycle with the RX1, RX3, RX4s. So this one's a new platform to try. It's got the new stabilizer system or the vibration dampening on the bottom of the bow. So I've messed around with them at the shop. We've had some that have gone out into the wild already, and I haven't had the opportunity to really like get some time behind my bow, and it's always exciting to do that and see where that goes. I ended up the big one was changing releases after a long time of shooting a certain style release. So that opened up a bit more. So that was the exciting thing, last year or so. And now this year, the new bow changed arrow rests for the first time for a long time. So a few learning curves. But
what did you go with for a rest?
Interesting. I've gone over to the Hamskis. I used to shoot the QAD Ultra Rest, and I've put the Hamskis on pretty much everything except for the like full blown Hoyt Invicta target bow, which I run the Spot Hog swap.
Oh, like a blade rest.
Yeah.
Got it.
It works better for that.
Yeah. I really like how rugged those Hamskis are. I mean, we shouldn't go too far down the target rabbit hole, I don't think, just because I think the majority of people on here are going to be hunters. But yeah, that Hamski rest is stupid rugged. Like, you always give me hell after every hunting season. You're like, dude, why is your bow so dirty? Like, what are you doing with this thing? And I generally break stuff on my bows, and I haven't broken one of those Hamskis yet. Actually, that's not true. No. I did break that spring thing off of it, but I just like tied a little knot in the field and it was fine.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty bulletproof. I mean, obviously there's always little finagly issues now and then, but for the most part, in all the times that we've dealt with them, I haven't had like a failure for that respect, right? They're pretty bulletproof. The one thing I do like about it, if something does happen, you can still shoot it. It's still shootable. Versus some that will stay up, and if the cable goes, you're kind of hooped. For those kind of situations, and if your timing goes out, you don't really have to faff too much with it. You can just tighten down your cable again, and you're off to the races. So on that kind of thing, they're bulletproof. They're not the smallest thing in the world, but they're bulletproof. I mean, I can testify because you brought that bow of yours in for restringing after the season, and we had a little discussion. I was like, dude, what? Like, I was like, I actually have to clean your bow before I have to put these brand new strings on, because your strings are going to look like, they're going to look so bad. I think we put those neon orange ones on after that.
Yeah.
It was horrid, dude. It was so hard. You actually apologized before you walked in. It's like, I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, no, it was bad. I think I was like just on the way home from a trip, and I think I was leaving again, right? I was just going to string it and check my zero and head back out, just because the ones that were on it were starting to fall apart on me. But yeah, no, that's one thing I've learned with archery stuff, man. The more reliable you can make your setup, the better. There's already enough to worry about in the field with these things that you don't want to be thinking about equipment too much.
No, and like for guys in your situation, when you're going out, you got to have confidence that that the rest that you're using, the sight that you're using, is going to hold up to God, what happens if you drop it or bang it? You've got to be confident in your gear, and that comes down to talking to people like, guys in the shop and that be like, look, like, there's some sites that are pretty bulletproof.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about your shop is like the crowd in there is super diverse. I mean, sometimes guys walk in and like, I'll be behind the counter working on my own bow, and they'll think I work there. And then I have to be like, hey, I don't work here, but let's continue this conversation. This is good. Like, I'm getting info, it's fun in there, man.
Yeah. I for me, I enjoy more like it. The environment is like friendly. Come and sit and have a chat. There's no pressure. If it's going to take it, if you want to work the problem or discuss what you want to do, it's, sit and do it. I think the last time that you were in there was, you ended up talking to 3 different people. And taking one's time and making sure that, the customer or guy that's just come in is super comfortable with his decision, particularly on when they start getting into like super high end gear. It's not cheap. And, if someone's spending a certain amount of money on their rig, they need to have the confidence and feel comfortable that, their time and their work and their effort is all put the right way. And they're not walking out going, oh my God, I don't know what the hell's going on now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Especially with archery being so overwhelming in the first place, right? If you get some good advice out of the gate, it's paramount. I mean, I can't remember when it was. It's probably like maybe a year or 2 years ago now. I was in there, and a guy that I became friends with from meeting in your shop, Jonathan. He's my other South African, I'm going to have him on here. But we met in the shop there, and we stayed in touch and kind of walked him through his first year and stuff. It was cool, man. And like he called me the other day with a bunch of archery questions, and it's like, okay, it's time to go see Lucian. Yeah.
I know you've you've met some guys, and you've out of your circle, you've sent people to the shop, and it's cool to see that, right? It's nice to see that people are like enjoying the gear that they got, And you meet people. It's not the first time that like guys have met each other and been like, you know what, this is cool. Like we got something in common.
Yeah, for sure. So like right now, if somebody walks in your shop off the street and they're like, "Hey, I'm just getting going. I want to get into hunting. I don't want to buy." I mean, the easy answer is you buy the top Hoyt or the top Matthews and whatever. But if somebody comes in and they're like, I want to get going, but I don't want to empty my bank account. What do I do?
Yeah.
What's sort of the direction that you would send them?
So usually before I ask them where they're going and what they're like, what their big plan is on budget, is I give them a bit of a rundown of what I look at as the 3 tiers of getting into your first hunting bow. And on your entry level side, I have the real world number versus like, oh, I saw this ad for a bow and it's $350. Well, the real world number at the end of the day, you're probably around that. The entry world of $600 to $800 gets you, like we talked about before, the PSC Stinger world. Then your next tier is what bow companies call their mainline bows, which would be more like your PSC Drive NXT, Hoyt Torex. Matthews doesn't really play in that sub $1,000 bow, and then you go into what they call their pro level bows, which is your Hoyt RX bows and the Ventums and the new PSC. What's it? The Evo Evil, whatever they.
Whatever they changed it to this year.
The Evo and the V3s for Matthews. So once we've discussed that point of view and what they're doing, I show them the bows and we discuss it a little, because usually a lot of people have done some research before they come into the shop. They've watched some YouTube videos, so they're more familiar with that.
Yeah, they're there to buy an 80-pound bow.
They're there to buy an 80-pound bow because Cameron Haynes shoots an 80-pound bow. And I've had guys that, you say to them, 80 pounds is, you don't need 80 pounds. I have a few customers that shoot 80 pounds and they can pull those bows. Were you not trying 75 on your Matthews at one point?
I have definitely messed around with trying to get my bows to tune at higher poundage. And then, you know what happens? Like me being me, I don't mind looking like an idiot a bit once in a while here. And so I'm also the kind of guy that his nerves can get the best of him in the field. And when you go to pull back on a bow, your body doesn't want to pull that bow back because you have such bad nerves. That 75-pound bow is a lot harder to shoot in the field than it is in your backyard or at the range. It's so easy to get overbowed. I mean, right now I shoot 70-pound Matthews, but I mean, I'm out a full turn. I'm like around 68 pounds. That's where my bow tunes good and shoots bullet holes. And, and the arrows zip right through deer. So,
and I've, like you said, we get guys, people do see that and you try and give the person as much information as possible. There's been a few times where I've just been like, no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't think, this is, in my opinion, is why this is not the best idea. Right. And for the most part, I think people take that in advisement and, they decide that's, give them the decision and they decide where they want to go, but with good knowledge. And if you have to take a day or two to go and decide what you want to do, go for it. This is a long-term plan, and it's not like I'm walking in here and I'm walking out with like a, $2,500 rig, and I haven't, and I need to make sure that it's all correct. So it's a bit more of a process, and it's guiding people in the right direction, I think. And that's the main goal, right? The main goal is that, and it's not about like how many bows or dozen arrows we can sell in a day. It's not about that.
Yeah. You raise an interesting point here. You said this is a long-term process, right? And I guess one of the things that I've been trying to figure out how to talk about it without sounding like an ass is
Mm.
like, how long do you think it takes the average guy to go from picking up a bow for the first time to being proficient? And I mean, I don't necessarily being able to shoot a perfect round of indoor or go shoot a whole bunch of tens on your local 3D, but proficiency, like being able to, at 20 to 40 yards or 30 to 60 or whatever, shoot decent groups and have a level of proficiency that, you can maybe hit that pie plate at 40 yards all the time, right?
I full compound for guys that learn and get the right foundation from the beginning. Compound's one of those that can make you look way better than you are. Once you can shoot it at close distance. And I've always given advice is get a nice group at a shorter distance and then work your group out so that you can get out to that pie plate, like you said. But to be proficient at that, I think it's not like I want to buy a compound today because I'm going hunting in 2 weeks. Have you shot before? Yeah. No. Okay. That's just not going to happen, right? Like you're not going to, and honestly, I had that in my shop, maybe not last year, the year before. And I actually had the person storm out of my shop because they didn't like that I told them that you can't go buy a bow, never shot before, get broadheads and start doing that. This is not the right thing. And I don't feel comfortable doing that. So to answer your original question, I think it takes time. And I've had customers that this was their game plan. And when they come in and say, I'm going to do a year, I want to have a good year of shooting behind me before I even go out.
Yeah.
And I think that's responsible in a lot of ways.
Too. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, like, I mentioned Jonathan already. And when he and I first started chatting, he was like, I'm going to take a year. And I was like, that is like the mark of somebody that's getting into hunting for the right reasons and with the right, the right mindset. You kind of, you owe it to the animals to be efficient, with your tool. We joke around on here quite a bit about like just different stuff in hunting, right? But it is true. I mean, you want to be making those clean, ethical shots, and you don't want to be losing animals or wounding them unnecessarily, right? So that year to get stuff together, I mean, I think that's perfect. Maybe buy your bow at the end of hunting season, and then by the time the next one rolls around, and be ready to start getting going, right?
Yeah, no, I think so, and I think I've had people say to me, "Well, I can, I'm hitting, a pie plate at 80 yards or 50 yards, and I haven't been shooting that long." But what we're talking about the year is more about your muscle memory, when you got nerves, when you're like, oh my God, I got it. When you're at that point, your year of shooting, your thousands of arrows that you've got behind you, that's what's going to help you, working through that versus I just grabbed the bow, I'm good to go. You know what I mean? Bow's tuned.
Oh yeah. I mean, on some of those hunting forums and Facebook groups and stuff like that, you see it all the time. Like, oh, I got this bow, whatever, a week ago, and there's something wrong with it. It won't hit where I'm aiming. And it's like, okay, let's back up. Let's look at you and not the bow. The bow's probably fine. Maybe it's not sighted in, but still, like the problem is very rarely the equipment in archery. And I think that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow because everybody wants that instant gratification, right?
Oh no, yes. And when the bows leave the shop, I get it as good as I would feel I could go and shoot the bow, right? And I do as much as I do to the bow that I'm going to go and shoot it. I will grab your bow. It's not going to be the 80-pound V3, right, or whatever. I'm not going to pull that guy back. I learned my lesson 3 years ago on that one, and I'm never going to do that again. And but the bow's there. Yeah, you've got to do the work now. You've got to sight it in. Maybe we have to move your peep. Maybe we have to figure out, adjust your draw lengths once you start shooting. The big one always is like the draw length is the big one, particularly what I've noticed with older school shooters is everyone's a little longer on their draw length than maybe they should be. And, so you've got your bow, you go and do your work. And then we can look at fine tuning it, further for you. But yeah, like you said, go grab your bow. You've only had it a week, like settle in with your bow and go for it. Like just get some arrows downrange.
Yeah. It's all reps, man. It really is. And like, I mean, I shoot more than mostly anybody I know. And I mean, I got into Southern Alberta last year chasing mule deer with Wasey, who hosts a lot of these things with me. And like some of those situations, like staring at some of the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life, it's like everything just went out the window. Like, okay, wait, what? Like settle my pin, get to my anchor, make sure my bubble's level, like all the things, all the steps gone. It's like pull the bow back and send the arrow to Jesus. Like see you later. Like nerves can get you, and it's like it doesn't matter how many reps you have, it happens. That's why,
and that's why that muscle memory kicks in. That hopefully that bow hand of yours that you've been shooting can, theoretically your level's going to be okay, right? When you draw back, and that's a big one. And the way I look at that would be for 3D. We've done a ton of 3D shooting, and it's just it's not this. It's the same and it's not the same. But the stress level sometimes can get there when you're maybe, in our little fish pond, when you're standing there trying to go to a shoot off, you get nervous.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, my God, I don't remember looking at my level. I don't remember looking at that. But
did I even look through my peep? Where am I?
I think I remember my first shoot off. I was just like, whatever happens, I just hit the target. You know what I mean? As long as we hit the target, I'll be happy. And it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, so good. The other one that I always get a kick out of with hunting is like being able to like guess ranges, like judge yardage as a hunter. And like I know a lot of hunters that aren't very good at judging yardage, and man, that's a factor. Like making sure you have the time for that rangefinder. It's just those arrows don't fly very flat, man. And I feel like that's just a skill guys need to work on. And like, I'd like to get on your level of judging yardage. I mean, I've shot unknown 3Ds with you before, and it's stupid. I don't like shooting against you.
Like with that, and I agree with you, you have to, I think a lot of people rely on the rangefinder a lot. And even when we've done rangefinder 3Ds, when we've done hunter score in 3Ds, I've messed up one or two, and I'm like, God, my head was telling me a distance. My rangefinder told me something else. My gut was telling me the distance. And I'm like, oh no, it's a rangefinder. It's right. No, is it though?
Yeah.
And learning your 20, what 20 yards looks like, or 20 meters looks like, and learning what, the 30 looks like visually, I think does help. It will help you in your game where you're like, in your situation and you're like, I know that's 30 meters. And know where your bow hits too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's massive, man. Like I've definitely misjudged yardage on animals before and like sent arrows over the back of them and stuff. And it's like, I did everything right the whole day up until this point, and I'm off by like 5 yards, and it's all for naught. It's all for naught at that point. Right. But it's true. I mean, that's one of those skills.
And it's super critical, more for the weight of arrow that you shoot, versus, guys that go play the 3D game who are just chasing arrow speed so they don't have to, if they screw up by a couple of meters, it's going to be okay. But when you're shooting, I'm not sure. I mean, what are you shooting? You're shooting 480s in your 480 range?
520 in there, like a 520 to 550. I'm lobbing logs, man.
Yeah. I mean, so, you're like, just put it in perspective, I get out of my bow roughly around 312 feet per second out of a 60-pound bow, but I'm doing my arrow's pretty fast. So when you're looking at yours, and I'm theoretically you're in the 270s.
Low 270s, high 260s. Yeah, like 268. I think is where my bow would chrono at right now, and that's like a 70-pound bow at 28 inches. like that. If I shoot a 450 grain arrow, that thing's like a lightning bolt. Yeah.
So for you, like getting back to your idea of like judging distance, you have your arrows in the air way longer than mine.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But a sparrow flies by mine, and my arrow just goes like haywire. Yours just carries on straight, right? Like it's
that reminds me of a funny one that happened to me. You and I were shooting a hunter scoring 3D, an indoor one, and there was a soft spot on a target that I had shot. It was actually the day after I had shot a deer with the same bow, so I had like literally unthreaded broadheads and put on field points. And so this thing was like, I think that bow I had set up like 540 grain arrows, and this thing hit. I hit the soft spot on this target, and the arrow just passed through this target. And I was with all you target guys, and you guys all looked at me like I had something wrong with me. It was hilarious.
No, yeah. Again, and that kind of proves the point. You just they're not designed for that, right? They're not designed for that kinetic that's coming through your bow. So it's one of those things. And when you're talking guys and you guys, like you said, just circling back to that, it's arrows as well, right? You've got to teach people a bit about arrows. So it's a process, right? And like you said, it's a good year. I think a year is not unreasonable to put the time in.
Yeah, I think you kind of owe it to the animals at very least, and then I think guys will find a lot more success if they work at it for a year. Like, I know I keep touching on Jonathan, but he's kind of a customer of yours, and he's become a friend of mine. Meeting him at the shop there, and like, he took your advice. He got going. He got a bow. He wasn't overbowed. Spent a year working at it. In his first season, he killed 2 deer, man. Like, you can't beat that. Like, that's the ultimate success. Like, work at it for a full year to get it done,
Yeah. And for me, knowing that, if the guy is set up correctly and, he's happy with the gear and he's come back, and we do a bit of working on the bow, making sure that everything's correct. And, I think that builds confidence, because if you don't have confidence in your gear and what you're actually doing with it, that's the worst. I mean, we're terrible at blaming everything but oneself when it comes to this. Like, something happens the minute you look at your bow, right? It's your bow and your release. You're like, what the hell?
Oh yeah. I me and Sky, Sky, we're both like we both like to tinker, right? And oftentimes when we're having issues, we always reduce it down to one of us being the issue, right? So it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the same thing, right? Even when I've been practicing at the shop, and I'm like, well, you do something and you're like, oh, okay, I better go put this bow on the press. I better check its timing. Something's not right, and you put it on there and you're like, well, everything's right, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's, always. I mean, my dad always says to me, like, in life, I kind of get proficient in stuff, and then I sort of move on from it. And then I kind of found archery and hunting. And it's like one of those pursuits for me that there isn't really a finish line, because like if I take a week off, I start moving backwards. If I take a month off, I'm even further backwards, and like, it's one of those things. I mean, like, you only get whatever it is, September to December, basically every year to hunt. And then the rest of the year, you need to be maintaining that skill if you want to be effective in the field. For guys that are hunters, right? And even the target guys, if you're not working at it between shoots, you're going to have issues when it comes time to shoot. Maybe not you. I've seen you shoot after not shooting for like 6 months. It's not fair, but
no, it's not. No. You have to put the time in. And I agree with you. I do have people that come in, right, and they maybe haven't shot all summer, and now we need get some arrows and get rolling again. And
the ball is coming.
Yeah, exactly. And, putting in the time in the beginning, like you said, when you get to the fall, you're good to go. And the same with target, like you said, or 3D or whatever, you can tell when you haven't had the arrows downrange, right? You can tell. And putting in the work during the off season, so to speak, it will pay off. For guys like, when you go out and do that, you may only get one shot. We'll get a few more, right? And we'll, depends how many mulligans you buy for a course, you get those do-overs, but you don't. So if you've packed in for 3 days, you better be sure that you can take that shot with confidence, right?
Yeah, no, it's the truth, man. It's like, we were back in one of my elk spots. I think we did 5 days back there during bow season. And, we had one good chance at a legal bull, and, I blew it. I drew my bow at the wrong time and it was game over, but,
right.
No, it's the truth, man. It's like, you have to be ready, and, you have to maintain that skill.
And that's why when we send you off, no pun intended, into the wild, you have to have that confidence that you grab the bow and everything is good to roll, right? So
yeah, for sure. And that's I mean, one of the reasons why I think you and I hit it off is because I think I was just harassing you about everything to do with bows. Anytime I'd make a change, I would double check my work with you, or anytime I'd buy anything, I'd ask you a million questions before I swipe my card, And
well, I think that one of the bigger ones was when you ordered your spot ox sight, that the Hogfather, right? I mean, so what do you think if? And what do you think if? And I'm like, look, man, it's
just order it already.
No, we worked through it, right? I mean, I think up to when we ordered it and it was already ordered, you were calling me going, so you think that's like, are we good? And I'm like, yeah, I think you'll be okay.
Can we add a 17th pen?
Yes. Can I change the color order that I ordered that in? I'm like, I'm about as annoying as it gets, so that's great. No, but it's what it means, that you're really taking your time with your gear too, right? And making sure that it's going to work.
Oh yeah, I'm driving everyone crazy. It's good, including my wife. So Lucian, what's next for you here? Like, what's on the horizon for just shooting arrows?
Well, we're going to. COVID's been interesting, right? We've had an interesting year. I don't think any of the stores are running at like 100%. I know I'm not. We got both shops, but unfortunately I've been running between them. So hopefully things open up and we can get back to, more time in the shop with people. And what's ahead right now is to getting the shop up and running where we get more people in without worrying about, people waiting for them and lining them up. And we've got our Just Shooting Arrows team, which we're expanding a little. And
Mhm.
we're going to get, we're changing it. I'm changing it just a little in my approach, and I think we've been talking a little bit about stuff, and
Yeah.
hopefully we're going to get back out there and start doing some shooting. And archery's been a life
Yeah.
changing thing for me, and I think it's a lot of people find it
Yeah.
very life changing. And for me, that's what I like doing, and I'm going to keep doing that. And hopefully, we can keep building the shop and building the reputation, and get people over to bows and get people out there shooting, because
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun, and it's bullets you get back most of the time, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of truth to what you're saying, though, with it being life changing. I mean, it's a very positive pursuit, and like for me, my whole family shoots, and my eldest daughter is shooting, and everybody's enjoying time together, kind of challenging themselves. So, I mean, you're totally right. It's a positive thing that can. Go ahead.
Well, let's put it this way: when you moved to that new place of yours, I'm sure that it was like, well, look at this! I can shoot in my backyard. This is a part of your thinking now, right? I know archers that have bought cars because the bow bag fits in the back of the trunk.
I think when I looked at this place, I think shortly after I popped by and I was showing him, like, look, I have I can shoot almost 100 yards here.
Yeah,
this is wicked. Yeah, like right out the back door. This is great. So it was for sure.
I'm a little jealous. The most I get right now is I can get, I think, 15 meters.
Yeah.
And if I climb up the stairs down the side of the house, probably be about 20, 25.
Yeah. Well, you just have to knock on the doors of your neighbors' houses and be like, hey, I'm going to set a target up on your shed. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll go down well, really I'm sure.
Yeah, in Vancouver, that'll go great. You're the bearded guy with the bow on the deck.
I can imagine. It did happen when I first started shooting. I was practicing in the back when I was doing Olympic recurve, and my neighbor put her head over the wall and said, "If I notice squirrels missing, I know where to come." But
that's rough.
Hey, what are you going to do? But
cool.
It is a life-changing thing for a lot of people. I've seen it with people we've coached, and I've seen it with people that we've geared up with bows, and people come out of their shell sometimes. Archery is a fun thing, even with people that come into the store that are quieter, and then they leave the shop and you see them later and they've got more confidence, and they're going out and shooting and having fun, and get into hunting and get into some 3Ds, and it's all fun. It's all about just going out and shooting and not worrying too much about what everyone says, right? And it's kind of just in the name of the shop. That's why I like the name of the shop. We're just shooting arrows, man. It's just go and have fun.
Well, that's a perfect spot to end this thing, and we will. I'm going to circle back around with you here soon and catch up again. Hopefully, the next time I have you on here, all this COVID stuff is over, and we're out shooting 3Ds, and we can tell a story about how I blew up 12 arrows on a steel bear or something stupid, right?
Yeah. You wouldn't be the first, and you're not going to be the last. I've had my fair share, and I've always tongue in cheek said maybe we should sponsor a steel target, but I think might come off a bit mean. But no, I think what you're doing, dude, and just to congratulate you, you're doing something cool, and
thanks,
we'll do it again, and maybe we'll I'm getting the new PSEs in, so we're actually going to have all three of the big boys together, so we can actually have a little talk, and maybe before season we'll talk about gear for people, and we do have cool. And we're going to we'll put something together for you guys and your listeners, so we'll have it on the website soon, and
cool.
We'll see something, and I wish you well with this, and hopefully one day with COVID we'll be able to actually have some fun and get out there and actually shoot.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram at Wilderness Locals or at our website at wildernesslocals.com.